Welcome everyone. Today we're going to do something slightly different on the channel. I brought on a guest named CardinalSoldier, and I'm going to kick it over to him to kind of introduce himself.
Hey guys, I'm Ian Prue, aka CardinalSoldier. I'm the co-founder and CEO of 1047 Games, and we are the makers of Splitgate.
Yeah, so why don't you kind of tell me, did you have much experience in game development before Splitgate? I followed a little bit of the early days of Splitgate, but I'll be honest, I'm a little hazy. I have noticed when I record footage, it comes through in the like shadow play as Portal Wars. So was that the original name?
That's actually a funny story. Yeah, I can. By the way, I'm happy to talk as much or as little about this as you want. But kind of the background of the story is I had this idea in like 2014, probably after playing Portal 2, of just very simple. I didn't intend to turn it into anything at the time. It was just I loved Portal. I've always loved Halo and first-person shooters, Call of Duty, Battlefield, whatever. And I thought, man, this Portal mechanic is so sick. I'd love to see it in a first-person shooter. And I had this vision while playing Portal of like seeing an enemy over there in the distance, spawning a portal behind him, and then shooting him in the back through my own portal, or shooting a portal under his feet to drop him to his death, like you do with the cubes. And that's how it started off. I actually did for my senior project. So I didn't have any game development experience other than just kind of screwing around. But I was a computer science major at Stanford, which unfortunately doesn't really have gaming. They're really strong at programming, but they don't have a gaming specific track. So I talked to my advisor and I said, hey, I really want to learn gaming. I'd love to learn Unreal Engine 4. I've done a little bit of Unity at this point. Can you sponsor me to do an independent study under you? And we can, I'll do that for my senior project. So that's what I did. And at the time it was just me. It was kind of a 10-week project, really rough around the edges. Even at the time, didn't intend to turn it into anything. It was just my way of getting my foot in the door and learning Unreal. And it was actually the weekend before finals. We had the senior project fair the following week. I asked like 7 of my friends, hey, can you guys come over and test this game? I need to make sure it works, because at this point I've only tested it with 2 laptops, right? So I have no idea what this feels like. And I have, the project fair that's going to have like 6 setups. So I need more people. And all my friends, they're like, we've got finals. Everybody's busy. Nobody really wants to come play. But I convinced them, to give me an hour of their time. And we ended up playing for 5 hours straight. And this is like right before finals when nobody has time.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the sort of like aha moment of, wow, this really plays differently than anything else. Maybe I should turn it into something. So that's kind of the background. I unfortunately, after that, I sort of didn't stick with it for a little bit. I had an internship to go do at Apple. So I was kind of committed to that. I couldn't back out of that. And I'm glad I didn't back out of that. It was a great experience. And then I came back to Stanford to get my master's, started thinking seriously about what do I want to do after I graduate. And ultimately, I really wanted to pursue this. I thought it had a lot of potential. I loved working on it. And I had the means to kind of take, no salary for a couple years and go pursue this. And that was when I started with my co-founder, Nick. Nick was in the same dorm as me the previous year. In 1047 was the address of our dorm.
Oh, okay.
And Nick was just one of the most brilliant people I've ever met, and also a gamer and a good friend of mine. And so the two of us basically, and I had to convince him and convince his parents to basically turn down his job offer from Amazon to go do this with me. And so we basically spent all of that year. He was a senior. I was getting my master's. Just, every waking hour we had, that was all we did. It was like 60 hours a week on the game and like 30 hours a week on schoolwork. And that was it. And then, as soon as we graduated, we took a week off. And then it was like hit the ground running. And it was just the two of us actually at this point for the first 6 months. And then hired a level designer, hired an animator, we kind of between the two of us threw together like $30,000 from internship money, and then it was a 5-person team for the first year. And then after about a year, we ended up getting some seed funding, which at that point, that really changed everything. Obviously, we're still a small team, we're still a small budget, but we had a lot more to work with. And that's when we kind of said, okay, let's go hire these AAA artists. Let's go hire some of these people with industry experience, and build out the team. And now we're up to about 25 people.
Oh, okay.
And so that's kind of the background. And then obviously launched a year ago in May of 2019. And I think a lot of people don't understand, I guess, our approach. I think a lot of people looked at our game and they're like, oh, it had this big launch and then it flopped and it failed and it's a dead game. And it's kind of like, our thinking is we didn't think we were going to have any spike. We didn't do hardly any advertising. We're still doing almost no advertising. In a lot of ways, we're treating this much more like a Silicon Valley startup or a mobile game. And what I mean by that is instead of trying to do the traditional, $60 game, put as much money into marketing as you can in the first couple weeks and then move on. That's to me is much more of a guessing game. To us, it was, we know the product on day one is not done. We didn't even have an item shop on day one. We're a free-to-play game without an item shop. And our thought was, let's just get it out there. We just want to get users playing it. We just want to get feedback. And as long as we have, I think we have like 200 concurrent players right now, which is not a lot, but it's enough for us to learn. It's enough for us to improve the game and see, what kind of impact our decisions make. And that's really what we've been doing for the last year, is just learning from our community, analyzing, what's working, what isn't, and improving the game. And as we get closer and closer to the console launch, that's really when we're going to try to do the big marketing push, because at that point we'll be like, hey, we know we've proven to ourselves that we have the KPIs we need. We've got a great product, and we know that from our admittedly small player base, we've really improved the game. And that's our approach. So I think a lot of people count us out. We're just kind of like, all right, that's fine. Like, you guys can count us out. Like, we're just working away, and we know that hopefully, the time will come and we'll have the game in a great state, which I think we're very close, and then we'll open the floodgates, hopefully.
That's cool. Well, yeah, thank you for the background. That's actually super, super interesting to kind of hear your guys' strategy, because I think, like you said, a lot of people kind of misunderstand, or a lot of people, not necessarily people like super in the community, but people more on the outskirts kind of wonder why there was never the big marketing push, or kind of maybe why you guys.
Well, so another big reason there wasn't the big marketing push is we don't have a lot of money, so it's not like, we have enough to keep operating, but it's not like we're EA where we can go spend millions of dollars in marketing. We could spend more, but our thought is, let's hold off on spending the limited budget that we have until we know we're in a state where we're going to succeed. And at launch, we knew we were not yet at that state. So,
yeah, that makes sense. So let me ask you this: what as far as I'm aware, you kind of mentioned you guys have gotten some seed funding, but besides that, the game's self-published and you guys just work on it. What was the thought process there to not go to a bigger publisher, or even I'm not super in the business, but like a mid-tier publisher that publishes a lot of those smaller indie games, and kind of go to them and have them pay for all that marketing for you guys?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, I don't think we're totally against going with a publisher by any means. We never felt the need to like actively seek one. I think, for better or for worse, we like doing things ourselves in general. Like, we kind of like the small team, work your tail off, do everything as best as you possibly can. And we would rather not rely on somebody else. I think that's just kind of generally how we do things. That doesn't mean we're actively against, if a publisher came to us, we would totally be open-minded. We just have never felt the need to go seek it. We always thought, hey, we can do things our way, and we'll be able to get there where we need to get to. which may or may not be the right call. But I think that's kind of why we never went down that path.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that kind of makes sense. So you kind of mentioned that you guys didn't necessarily even anticipate that big spike of players at the very start. Do you think if you had maybe waited, I'll just throw out numbers, but like a couple months to get some more of those features in the game, that more of those players would have stuck around? Or do you kind of think it was a flash in the pan anyways, and it was just a lot of people kind of checking the game out and they weren't going to stick around regardless? I've always kind of thought that one of your biggest problems is so many people describe the game as Halo, and it's Halo inspired, but like it doesn't really play like Halo. It's totally different. It's its own game, which is good, but I think a lot of people came thinking like, oh cool, Halo, it's free to play, and then they're like, whoa, this doesn't play exactly like Halo, especially if they were someone that played the older Halo games, because then it plays a lot different.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think in terms of, like, we like to say our gunplay is very similar to the older Halos, like Halo 2 and 3. But the actual movement, I mean, the floatiness is there, but the actual way a high-level game plays out is nothing like the older Halos.
For sure.
But yeah, obviously there's a lot of inspiration there. Halo 2 was my favorite game of all time, in case anyone is wondering. But so the question was, do I think so basically launch, I think I certainly think we would have done better at launch if we had waited a little bit longer, no doubt. I think like the season 1 update in September to me felt like that was a pretty substantial update. But I think what people don't understand is a lot of the improvements we've made, we would have had no way of knowing. I mean, certain things, right? Having an item shop or having daily and weekly challenges or a battle pass or just general polish, like those things would have helped. But I don't think any of that would have by itself made a substantial difference. To me, there were really 2 big issues we had at launch, which we have since fixed. The kind of overarching theme was the new user experience was really poor. What we have learned the hard way is if you're not having fun in the first 5 minutes of a free-to-play game, you're going to give up on it. And if you think about, the games we grew up playing, right? Halo 2, that process was my mom goes to GameStop, spends $60, gives it to me for my birthday or Christmas. I am now stuck with that game for a very long time until the next birthday or Christmas. I'm not going to give up on it. And there's just the general inconvenience of now if I don't like it, what am I going to go back to the store and try to trade it in used? With a free-to-play game, you've got about 2 minutes to win somebody over. And in our case, we had no tutorial, we had no onboarding, and actually, ironically enough, the second big issue that was kind of a sub part of the first big issue was our ranking system. I am a huge Halo 2 fan, and I loved Halo 2's ranking system, which is why we brought it back when we initially launched, the 1 to 50 system. What we learned the hard way is that system is definitively horrible and is actually there's a reason that Halo does not use the Halo 2 1 to 50 ranking system anymore. And the big issue about the Halo 2 1 to 50 ranking system is everybody starts at rank 1, which means for that new user experience, you've got the Halo pros and the 12-year-old Fortnite kids both coming in at the same rank and having really lopsided matches. And we saw this with a very high percentage of our users. They'd get blown out in their first game and they wouldn't even play a second game. They'd just quit right then and there. The other problem with this system is because it takes so much time to rank up to rank 30, 40, 50, we had a situation where after a few days, our biggest fans had gotten to the high ranks of 40 and 50. And our ranking system was then saying, hey, sorry, you're rank 40. You can't play with those rank 20s. And so what did those best players do? They either gave up on the game because they couldn't find matches anymore, even with thousands of players online, or more often than not, they make a new Steam account because it's free. They come back in at rank 1 and they do it again and obliterate the new users. And so we just kind of had this endless cycle of the really good players getting to the top, starting over at 1, starting over at 1, starting over at 1. And then the new users who are kind of trying the game out and aren't learning anything are just getting destroyed, destroyed, destroyed. We actually had 60% of our games were blowout matches when we launched, meaning like
that's
50 to 30 or worse.
Yeah.
So it was really bad. But the thing that has us very optimistic is a lot of those changes are very solvable problems, and it's unfortunate that we didn't have those solved going into day one. But it took us until season 1 to fix that because it required us to totally redo our matchmaking. But it is encouraging to us to be like, hey, this is a huge, definable, and solvable problem. Let's fix that. Glad we did that and didn't pour a ton of money into marketing with this product that cannot work in its early state. So
yeah,
we're glad we did what we did.
That's funny that you kind of talk about that, because I don't know how much you follow me or my channel, but I still cover and play a lot of Halo, and it's funny how many people cling to that 1 to 50 system when you've pretty much outlined all the major issues it has. But people in their minds, and just like you and me, because I grew up more on Halo 3, but same general premise.
Yeah.
I think they changed.
3 was actually a lot different than 2, and I didn't know this until later. It had some of the same problems, but 3's system actually, the way it worked was internally you were really starting at 25, but then there was kind of a gap of so it would be like 25 plus or minus the uncertainty factor. And so what would visually display, even though internally you would start at 25, visually you would start at 1 because there's an uncertainty factor of plus or minus 24. And so you would start at 1 visually, internally you'd be at 25, and as a result you could also move up and down really quickly, because as you won games, that 25 number would go up and the uncertainty would go down. And so to the user, you could win 10 games in a row and you're already 35, 40.
Yeah.
Whereas in Halo 2, you win 10 games in a row and you're at like 8.
That's actually cool. I knew you ranked up faster in Halo 3, but I didn't really know that was why. I
didn't know that either at first.
Yeah, that's super cool to hear. But so you kind of mentioned Halo 2 was one of your favorite games, and I think a lot of people would kind of describe Splitgate these days, at least, as a pretty competitive shooter. Besides like playing Halo 2 and liking it, did you or any of the people on the team like have competitive shooter experience, or is it mostly just you guys were fans of them?
I mean, I didn't ever like play pro or anything. I just played ultra competitively, obsessively all the time. So like I got to 50 in Halo 3 and I got to champion in Halo 5. So I played a lot, and I definitely consider myself a competitive Halo player, but I was never, traveling to like a LAN tournament or anything. Just didn't have time.
Yeah, no, I feel that.
Yeah. And the rest of the team, I mean, we've got a good balance. We've got some guys that are very casual players, that's mostly played like the campaign and RPGs. And we've got some like Nick, my co-founder. He's a pretty competitive, or used to be a pretty competitive Rocket League player.
Oh, yeah.
And he was always, a good Halo player as well. So yeah, we've got a good mix.
That's cool. So have you guys seen now, because like you mentioned, you switched your rank system to more of like, I don't know how to describe it, but it's more like the tier system. Like you have bronze, silver, gold, and I forget your exact ranks. I haven't gotten very high.
It's elo based. It's very similar to Overwatch, which I think is pretty similar to what Halo 5 does actually.
Yeah. So have you seen better retention switching to that then?
Yeah. We've seen much better retention. I think our biggest issue right now is our day 1 and day 7 retention are phenomenal actually. The issue is we kind of, with a small player base, as soon as players get to level 15, when they do unlock ranked, we kind of have this issue of, you've had a good week before you get to ranked, and now you go play ranked and there's no bots, which means you're not getting as many games. You could get a long wait time, and there's just inevitably more people are playing social because it's guaranteed shorter wait times. And so as a result, it's just a worse experience with higher ping, longer wait times, more lopsided matches, and that's where we see the big drop off. But again, it all comes down to we are very optimistic because we look at that and we're like, that is again a very definable and solvable problem
Hmm.
that goes away with a bigger player base. So we're just kind of tinkering away, all with kind of the bet that once we finish tinkering away, I mean, obviously you're never done, and we do that marketing push, we'll get over the hump and we'll have good games in ranked, we'll have good games in social, and we've got some other playlists that we want to add as well that hopefully as the player base grows we'll be able to add.
That's cool. Yeah, one of the changes, and I can't remember when exactly you guys implemented it, but I really liked it when you made it so now you can queue like best available or soonest available, and it lets you play. It'll throw you into social matches, but you can still also get a ranked match doing that. I think that's kind of cool because when I play Splitgate, a lot of the times it's like I wouldn't mind playing ranked, but you don't necessarily want to sit and wait forever. But having that is kind of cool because then you're like, well, if it throws me into a ranked match, I'll play a ranked match, but otherwise I'll just hang out and chill. Splitgate's honestly one of those games where I just enjoy kind of like playing it more casually, mostly because it gets at the higher level, it gets pretty intense and it's a little out of my league. But I've never been able to fully grasp the portal mechanic at a high level. The high level players get crazy with it.
Yeah, and that, I mean, that kind of is the issue we see with having a small player base is you have to inevitably have games where you've got a high level player with a not as high level player in the same match. There's only so much you can do. And it's that constant balance of how long do we make you wait before we say, okay, fine, we're going to put the top player in the world against the worst player in the world, right? And that's not fun for anyone. So that's the trick, but neither is waiting. So, but yeah, having the best available option, definitely we saw a big improvement to ranked because people will just do both. And if they get a ranked game, great. And if they've waited the max amount of time, then they just go into social.
That's so it kind of has like a timer to it.
Yeah. So it has a fallback. So it'll try to find you a ranked game. And if it hasn't, after kind of a certain amount of time, then it'll say, okay, we give up. We're just going to put you into a good social game. So.
Oh, cool. I didn't know that. I thought it was literally just first game. That's cool how I didn't know it prioritizes rank. So that's kind of cool. That's definitely something good to know.
It prioritizes ranked if it's a well-balanced game. Okay. So it will never remove, like, it has certain defined restrictions of like, hey, if we can find you a well-balanced, good ranked game, we're going to do that. Otherwise, we're not going to put you in a poorly balanced ranked game. We'll put you into a social game that is well-balanced.
It's kind of crazy to think how much, well, you would know. For me, it's more theorizing in my head, but how much goes into just the matchmaking experience, not even the game itself. Because like you said, if the matchmaking experience is gone, or if it's bad, I mean, it doesn't even matter if the game's good. People will leave because they're not having good matches, they're waiting too long, and all sorts of stuff. So it's kind of crazy all the tinkering you have to do just on that front, not even worrying about game balance or game design, anything like that.
I mean, it's like an entirely full-time project on top of, the game is obviously its own full-time project, but the whole back end and matchmaking and everything there is its own entire project to manage. So
yeah, for sure. So I have sort of an odd question, and it might not have even crossed your guys' mind. So when Splitgate came out last year, it obviously came out prior to Halo being like properly on PC. We had the old Halo games, but the Master Chief Collection hadn't come out yet.
Right.
When that got announced, was that a bummer to you guys? Did you guys see any decrease or spike in numbers? Because I've kind of watched the numbers, and it really didn't seem like, I thought...
It didn't really have much of an impact. I mean, maybe like for a week it was slightly down, but we didn't really see much of a hit. I mean, honestly, we've seen more hits when Call of Duty or Fortnite have a big update.
Let's be real, more people play those games, so
yeah. No, I mean, we didn't see too much of a difference. And actually, I mean, we've talked about like Halo Infinite. We actually are looking forward to Halo Infinite coming out because obviously we don't want to launch the same week that they do, but we feel like, if it can get more of the 12-year-old Fortnite kids away from Fortnite and into this entirely unexplored genre to them, that's a good thing. I think you look at like PUBG and Fortnite when they were both battling, back 2 years ago, I think they elevated each other, and I
Oh,
think
for
that
sure.
that's something that could happen with us, where you get Halo Infinite. Hopefully, more players are going to be playing arena shooters again.
Yeah,
So
arena shooters haven't been the top dog in quite some time.
yeah, it's about
Probably
time.
honestly since Halo used to be big, or the
Yeah,
old Quake
Halo
games,
3,
but
right? Maybe Halo
yeah.
Reach, but
Yeah, the start of Halo
yeah,
Reach, right?
yeah,
So
exactly.
this might be a weird question too. So like in an arena shooter, map balance and map flow are kind of one of the most important aspects of the game, because if the map is badly designed, or one part of the map is too strong of a place to hold, it kind of ruins the whole flow of the game. How
Yep.
hard was it to design maps where you can basically portal all over the place? I mean, obviously you have the, whatever you want to call them, the little walls that you portal on, but still
Mhm.
you can get from one side of the map to the other side in an instant, whereas in a Quake or an Unreal Tournament or a Halo, you gotta run across the
Yeah, yeah,
map.
yeah. It was really hard at first, and it became a lot easier. The first map that I ever made was Outpost, the space one,
Okay.
and that map took like 2.5 months to get right. It was just, it was a mess. I mean, I my initial design, everything was way too complicated when I first started. It was much more like a Portal map than a Halo map.
Mm-hmm.
It was much more like, all right, if you jump through here and come out at this angle, then you'll also be able to spawn that portal over
Mm-hmm.
there, and that'll get you to the sniper tower in 3 steps. And it was like, that's way too complicated. No one, like, it's got to be like a one-step thing. And the other
Yeah.
thing that kind of just philosophically, um, we did is, we want everyone should be able to play the game like it's Halo and have a good experience, but it should always be designed in a way that the top players are still able to take full advantage of the portals. And so you'll look at like Outpost initially did not have any bridges between the various platforms because we wanted to force people to portal to get across the bridge. But
Mm-hmm.
then what we realized is letting a new user walk across the bridge doesn't take anything away from anyone. It just makes their life easier, but makes an advanced player is still going to portal across the
Mm-hmm.
bridge, and they're going to be much better off doing that than walking across the bridge. But a new user, hey, let's make it easy for you. So that, that was kind of, we got a lot better as we went. I mean, that map took so, it doesn't even look anything like the first version of it. The second map was Olympus. That one came a lot easier. I think scale was another thing that was difficult for us at first. All of our maps were way too big, but as we kind of figured that out, the original version of Olympus was 25% bigger, and characters were 25% smaller. So if you ever go look at like really old gameplay, it looks like a bunch of like just 3 foot tall people running around the map. It's really funny. Um, but I mean, after that, I think most of the maps have been pretty smooth sailing. A lot of the maps have been inspired by Halo maps. Probably like two or three, probably three of them. Silo was inspired by Sword Base and Reach. Pantheon was inspired by um,
Sanctuary.
Sanctuary in Halo 2, and
Yeah, I was gonna ask
High
about that one.
Wind. Yeah, yeah, and High Wind was inspired by Lockout.
Okay.
Um,
That's cool. It's cool to
but
hear the other two. The Pantheon one, it's kind of wears it on its sleeve. I feel like that one's pretty easy to notice. But now that you kind of point out the other two, I can visualize it. But before that, I hadn't really thought
right.
about that before. So that's kind of cool.
Yep, yep. And then the other ones are all, take a little bit of inspiration here and there, but they're all kind of their own thing. That all offer something totally different. But yeah, we've gotten a lot better. And actually, we also now are working with Blaze, who was previously at 343. So he has designed the last few maps. So I designed the first 8 maps, and Blaze designed Abyss, Oasis, and the next unreleased map.
Oh, cool.
But it's been, and he's also gotten a lot better, because when he first started, it was very much like the first version of Abyss was very, very Halo-esque.
Mm-hmm.
And the portals were kind of randomly placed, and kind of working together with him, he has sort of figured it out as we went. It's been very collaborative, and Abyss and Oasis have both turned into Splitgate maps. And actually, the next map that he recently finished, in my opinion, is the best map in the entire game.
Oh, cool.
So I'm really excited about that one.
That's cool to hear. Well, you don't have to answer this question, but I know it might have been you, or it was one of the videos with one of the devs, and it's a blur in my head who it was. But you guys had talked about possibly doing more frequent, smaller releases. Is the plan to kind of still release one map here and there every once in a while, or is there?
Yeah. So I think we're going to do seasons more frequently with kind of we're actually probably doing an update tonight that's sort of smaller. But with season 1, that was in September. Season 2 wasn't until June. So there was a 9-month period of basically no new content.
Yeah.
Because initially we were thinking we want to save all of the content for the big release. Our thought process now is, we don't want to take that approach. We want to get some momentum going into the release, and it's been a long enough wait. So that's why we did season 2 now. We'll probably do season 3, 3 to 4 months from now. And we're just going to sort of get on a more consistent cadence of, every 3 or 4 months is a new season, which will always have at least one new map and additional changes. We've got some game mode ideas. We're working on mod support.
Cool.
There's a bunch of different things we're working on. And we want to, instead of saving it all for this big release, we want to just kind of sprinkle it out there as we go, as we develop. So
Cool. So, as some people would probably know, season 2 came out, was that Tuesday, right? Or was it Monday?
June 15th, whatever I don't even know.
Well, earlier this week. So how has that been going for you guys? I haven't had too much of a chance to jump into it yet. I'm hoping to more this weekend, but have you been seeing a pretty positive reception? I have on Twitter for the most part.
I think it's been going really well. I think, there's a few people that aren't happy about the AR being removed from your starter weapon in social. That's actually something we're still figuring out. We're sort of using these first 2 weeks while there's no ranked mode to figure out what should the meta be. Do we need to tweak anything with the new balance changes? But in general, the overwhelming feedback has been very positive. People love the new map. They love the updated graphics. They love the new UI, and they love the carbine. And I personally, I'm a gamer too, obviously. So I feel like the game is in the best state it's ever been by far. I'm enjoying it a ton. So
well, that's cool. That's good to hear. Yeah, like I said, all the people that I talk to that play a lot more Splitgate than I do seem to be liking it. They all think the carbine's pretty cool. So I'm excited to jump in and actually get to put some hours into it this weekend. Definitely. Just so I have more time. But
yeah.
So you kind of mentioned a little bit earlier talking about maybe doing more of a marketing push once you're releasing to consoles. Do you guys, and this another one, if at any point you don't want to answer these questions, just let me know. But do you guys have specific consoles targeted already? Are we going across the board? Is there any plans there?
Not ready to share anything there.
Okay. Yep. No problem. Yeah. I believe you mentioned in one of your in one of the dev blogs that there is the plans to do crossplay though with the console release, right? That'll be cool.
Yes. Yeah, we'll for sure have crossplay. It's something we've been working on, is just making sure like everything is set up such that it will work. So
cool. Yeah, that'll be huge for the player base. Just the more players, the better, right?
Definitely.
So have you guys? Obviously, I assume you've been working on it. So have you had good luck with the controller versus mouse and keyboard balance? In my head, I've always thought like you could probably get the gunplay pretty balanced, but I just can't imagine trying to quickly set up portals on a controller.
It's pretty good. It's live now, so you should definitely test it out.
Oh, okay.
With the controller.
There you go.
Yeah, I think our approach to the control, I think there's a little bit more to be done on the portal side of things, because you do have to be super precise right now. And I think what we'll probably do is just give you a little bit of leeway, so if you're 3 inches off or whatever it is, it'll still hit. But I think in terms of like our aim assist, I think we're in a really good spot. We're constantly tweaking it and we want more feedback on it, but we basically said, let's look at what Halo Reach did. Let's try to make it as close to that as possible, and then let's tone it down 20%.
There you go.
Which I think worked pretty well, because I think Halo Reach feels amazing. I mean, Halo, their aim assist they absolutely nailed, but they're kind of in the difficult spot of, it's easier on a controller to aim than a mouse and keyboard. So in our game, we thought, well, let's try to get that same feel that feels so great, but let's just dial it back a notch so that the PC players are still. You should still be on a mouse and keyboard if you want to be competitive, but yeah, we want to be like 5% worse on a controller than on a mouse and keyboard. Would be the perfect balance to us.
Yeah, that's cool to hear. I mean, that's just a constant give and take in every game these days, since so many games have crossplay, or even if they don't, most games you can plug in a controller. It feels like even when it is arguably balanced, people still complain about it. So it's just
I mean, we've already had that. There's one player who's really good with a controller, and a lot of people have been kind of toxic towards him because aim assist doesn't take skill, and it's like, well, come on, guys, like, you literally have to have aim assist. Like a first person shooter, try playing one without aim assist. It is impossible. Like, you cannot aim.
I always like to tell people, just imagine when you were playing Halo back in the day, and like your buddy would piss you off on the same team, and you'd try and like BR your friend, and you just couldn't hit him. That's what it feels like to play without aim assist.
Yeah, it's impossible. Like, or no scoping with a sniper in Halo back in the day, right?
Yeah. So that's kind of all I had in terms of questions for Splitgate specifically, unless you kind of had anything else you wanted to touch on.
No, I mean, I think I'm happy to answer whatever, but I think I touched on everything. I would encourage all of your viewers to check out Season 2.
For sure, yeah. And I do plan, most likely, unless real life stuff comes up, but once I get some time into it, I plan on putting a video together kind of on my thoughts for sure. So obviously you guys are sporting Splitgate. It seems like that's the plan going forward. Does 1047 have any plans to maybe try and work on other games, or is it for now it's just Splitgate and maybe that happens in the future, maybe it doesn't?
For now it's just Splitgate. There's definitely at least 2 other game ideas that I have personally that I really want to do at some point, but they're not anytime soon. I mean, they're years away, in my opinion. I want to stick to Splitgate. I totally believe in it. I think there's no reason it shouldn't be on the top of Twitch. I totally believe in it. I think it's a great game. I want to see it succeed. But I don't want to be a one game studio. There's other ideas that we want to do down the line.
So that actually brought up a question just now that I thought of that I wasn't planning on asking. So you kind of mentioned Twitch. Do you think the start of the game was kind of hurt by a lot of bigger streamers playing that had no clue how to play the game?
Yeah, Twitch Rivals definitely hurt us. There's no doubt about it. I mean, it did get us a lot of exposure and eyeballs, but it was pretty unfortunate that you had the 4 biggest. Actually, I'm pretty sure the 8 biggest streamers in that tournament. Each of them lost every game, or every game other than one, maybe. I think Doc's team and Summit. I think they ended up losing every game and getting last place, and then XQC's team ended up getting second to last place. And the format of the tournament was 5 hours of like no score limit, so they would get these games where you're down, you've lost after 5 minutes, and now you just have to suffer through another 7 minutes of So
yeah, that's weird. I don't remember. It was like a team with the ogres on it that ended up winning, right?
They won the first half, so there were 2 brackets. Okay. So they won the first bracket. That one was a lot better balanced. There were kind of each of the teams were pretty casually competitive. I mean, there were good teams. Like the ogre team was really good. The problem was the second half. You had 2 kind of streamer teams, and then you had 6 pro teams with a lot of like pro Call of Duty, pro Halo, pro Fortnite, and they just stomped on them.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I was just kind of curious. I kind of thought about that when you mentioned Twitch. So yeah, I mean that's basically all I have. Have you guys? So do you guys have like a formal office, or is it kind of?
No, we're a remote team. I mean, this is kind of the office, right? It's I mean, I'll give you a tour.
Okay.
This is the office.
Cool. There you go.
But we're a remote team. There's like 3 people that work here, and then there's everybody's scattered everywhere. So.
Well, cool. Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on. This was actually super fun and informative. So
Yeah.
I had a lot of fun. Like he mentioned, if any of this interests you, if you haven't played Splitgate, I highly recommend checking it out. It's free to play on Steam. I can't speak, so there's no downside to trying it. Other than that, do you have? Obviously, there's the Splitgate Twitter account, but do you have like a personal Twitter account you want people to follow or anything like that?
Yeah, I have a Twitter, but the only thing it does is retweet Splitgate. So
there you go. So just follow Splitgate, and well, that's good enough. So we'll call it there. Thanks, everyone. See you.
Awesome.